without the next speaker here, Tracy Larkin Thomason, Director of the Nevada State DOT. Take it away, Tracy.
Hey, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Next slide, please. Gonna jump right in. The I-80 corridor is actually an expanded corridor from a coalition that we started almost 20 years ago for winter weather operations, and it went from California to Nebraska. Literally, if we had the road closed at the California-Nevada line, we needed to tell truckers back in Nebraska that they needed to deviate and look at alternate routes. So that's how it started, but it really has been just starting since January of this year of really looking across the whole corridor. Because it started as winter weather operations, we started with our focus on supply chain management. Next slide, please. So when we looked at, as we look at here, we had three things that we decided we really wanted to look at. But primarily it was, we wanted to be connected, ensure that at each border, at every state border, that we were connected. It didn't really matter how we were connected. It could be satellite, it could be fiber, it could be cellular, whatever was best for the state, because there's a wide variety of population densities, long rural areas, power, lack of power, etc. So each state has a slightly different need, and they can progress at their own rate. The other thing that the intent is, at those borders, we also agreed to be interoperable. So when we look across this border, we have talked to every single state, and I'm pleased to say, literally, it started in January. By the end of January, we had 2 representatives from every state across the I-80 corridor. And the intent being that when I look at, we all agree that we're going to be interoperable and connected, but I only have to really talk to California and Utah. So it's bringing it down to manageable pieces that we can look at. So, and then Utah needs to talk to me, and they need to talk to Wyoming. We have these conversations, we agree at those borders that's interoperable, and then it becomes scalable. And I don't really need to worry that Pennsylvania or New Jersey are, oh my God, I have to coordinate with them. I do and I don't. We've agreed that we will be connected. We've agreed that we'll be interoperable. So when we talk to our neighbors, and I'm going to expand a little bit more on relationships is a big thing, but when we talk to our neighbors, we're ready to move on. And that allows us to scale up at incremental pieces. Next slide. So the other part is here is, as we go across and we talk about being, like I said, connected and interoperable, we also have a lot of nodes along the way. So we have the 11 states, we have the 120 counties, we have 482 cities, but more importantly here, when we look at the interstates, we have another 11 interstate crossings. As we start to agree on how we can be connected across the borders, we look at those nodes. So when you look at the I-5 in California, you look at the I-35 in Iowa, and it connects down to Texas. So the other thing is to say, as we look at this corridor, we're also looking at, as we move forward on developing a couple of aspects, how we coordinate that with other interstates, so that we're not creating a corridor of excellence. Next slide. So like I said, we started back in December. I'm moving fairly quickly through this, I know, but here are the parts that are really important. We've got together as all the states, and we decided the things that were really important to us was improved situational awareness. You see up there, incident management, real-time information, traveler information. And so based on that, we then moved into looking at focus areas. Again, real-time information on weather, real-time information on work zones. We were looking at truck parking, and one of the reasons for truck parking was because so much work has been done about that across the nation. But the intent was to get a small focus area. It's very easy to look at the corridor and get kind of overwhelmed by all the opportunities and all the things like, well, we need to bring in this person, we need to bring this other group in. We do have partners, but let's work on 1 or 2 small focus areas. And as we succeed at getting that, we can build off of that. But then when we looked at the focus areas, this goes back to some points that Valerie was touching on. What are the enabling systems? Because bottom line, there's a commonality here. Again, it becomes, are we connected? Can we get the information out there? Interoperable is when data is transferred across there. So we put the digital infrastructure in place. As we get the data across there, can we understand it? Can it actually be shared across different platforms and shared across different jurisdictions? And then the governance. So on that enabling systems, we're getting back to really the basics again. Get connected, get interoperable, look at how we're actually transferring the data across the jurisdictions. So we started really at January. We got the full partnerships together at the end of TRB. It's a great place for many things. And building partnerships is also one of them. We built the consensus here. We had met with all the different DOT. We met with all the CEOs. We did individual interviews with all the states across there and really looked at what was important to them. And then at the next level, we did another interview with some of their technical leaders. Really like where are they? Where are they at the level of how advanced are they in actually having the digital infrastructure in place? Definitely states are at a different level. We all have many outside influences. It might be funding, it might be the political environment that's in place at the time, where the focus areas are. But again, the idea was to find where everybody was, start to identify the gaps and put together a couple working groups. We had in May, we had a summit up in Chicago to get together, very successful summit. We had identified the 3 working groups: data standards and sharing, the technology and infrastructure, governance, all which are moving along at really phenomenal, I want to say speed, but it's the interest, it's the excitement about it that is really kind of really revving up the group moving forward. So governance is being led by Jack Marchonks from Ohio. One of the things we're looking at now is having an MOU between all the states. Again, just to kind of get a focus there, to kind of get the foundation in place. As we move forward, this is obviously not a 6-month endeavor, is a multi-year endeavor, and there will be a lot of changes along the way. So we want to kind of set a strong foundation to build upon. And then the data standards and sharing that's being led by Matt in Iowa, and then technology and infrastructure by Dave Mann in California. I'm sorry, by John Fleming and PennDOT, so I apologize for that, but Dave is very active in it. Which brings to the other point I was saying before is, as we're looking across the different connections, we are very much making sure that what we are doing is not in another silo. So with those connections, like Dave Mann in California, with his working with the I-5 corridor, with Erica Kemp, who you're going to be hearing from just in a few minutes, has been part of the conversations too down in Texas. You may not think of Texas as part of the I-80 coalition, but we do. We are connected by I-35, and as we advance different data standards moving forward, we want to make sure that that's going to work along that corridor too. So that node that's in Iowa, and I always laugh because I'm speaking with my hands, which most of you can't see, but they're very expressive. It connects down to I-35 in Texas. We need to make sure that we're consistent as we build along these corridors, as we advance, so that someday the idea is that a truck can come down from Washington State, come down I-5, hang a left, go across I-80, get to Iowa, hang a right, go down I-35, and then do another right and go along the I-10 and have a foundational level of connectivity, interoperability, and data standards. One of the things we're really looking at is also like on the truck parking. There is so much work doing across the nation. We are definitely looking at it across the I-80 corridor, but we also need to be aware of all the great work that's already been done in Washington and Oregon and California, Texas, and again, and the Southeast. There's so much work we need to make sure that we are starting to connect those dots there, to make sure that we are all advancing together. And then as we advance out of the nodes, like I said, we have 11 nodes, so we have 11 interstates. As we start to go down those corridors, and then we spread out from there. Next slide. And so again, these are the working groups with the lead, Matthew Mill from Iowa. It's been phenomenal. They have been kind of doing almost breakneck. And then the infrastructure and technology, John Fleming from PennDOT. They're looking at other data exchange aggregation, inventory connection gaps, like what do we need to what do we need to fill in with for interoperability, and then sharing the best practices both along the corridor and with our neighbors, north, south, and again, as we mentioned, our neighbors right along the I-80 corridor. Jack for the governance, like I said, we're doing the agreement to be signed by all parties. And then we're looking at different funding opportunities. We have identified a few to keep this moving along, and really amazed at how much it has been coming together. The other thing with the working groups is we do have monthly check-ins with them, and we put out an update every month to everyone along the corridor, just so they see that we're keeping everybody on focus. We're keeping a cadence for reporting. And also we've been reporting this to FHWA, who have been strong partners on this along the way and very strongly supportive of it. So, and then the next slide. This is really emphasizing, we just said this was from our summit in Chicago, but it's just showing that it really becomes down to relationships. We have found all you really need to do is reach across this jurisdictional. We have not found anyone who's like, no, we can't do that. We're really just starting to talk like, how can we best work with you to advance this for all of us? Another thing that we've been very keenly looking at is making sure that we are also attending or have representation at the efforts that John Corbin, FHWA, ITS America, and others have been doing on digital infrastructure, making sure that as we keep moving along, we're aligning. It's extremely important, I think, now to start connecting the dots and start making kind of harmonizing across the different jurisdictions. So it's a rather quick delivery, but very pleased at the excitement that's been generated by the I-80 corridor and how it's starting to spread down other corridors. Like we said, Texas is part of the I-80 corridor, and I've also said that Hawaii has also asked to be part of the I-80 corridor. So it really has become this multi-jurisdictional, very multi-interest group moving forward. That concludes my part.